Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Ed Block Courage Cast. It is great to be back with my guys. I'm your host, Dave Steinwedel. Little banged up this week. I'll explain that here in a little bit. These guys already know what I'm talking about. We'll get to that. We have a great guest this week, as we continue to have great guests on this podcast. By the way, I want to give a shout out. He's not on this show. He doesn't come on and he doesn't talk sports, but we need to shout him out because he has done an outstanding job for us, and that would be our guy Ryan Shell. Yes. Ryan works tirelessly for this show, for the foundation, in getting us guys to talk to. He's done an amazing job. Last week with Laith Walshlinger, the actor from the FX Aaron Hernandez documentary. I mean, you go back through some of the last pods before, Warren Moon, Luke Kuechly, guys like that. I mean, Ryan has done a great job. He's a very valuable asset, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves because he doesn't show his face on this podcast, but he is a big driving force behind this. So want to shout him out here at the beginning because he does an amazing job. But I'm your host, Dave Steinwedel, joined as always by my two friends and co-hosts, former NFL offensive lineman with the Ravens, the Browns, and the Saints, and an Ed Block Courage Award recipient. That would be Wally Williams. Wally, great to see you, sir. How you doing?
I'm fine, man. You know, it's everybody's just had that hectic time of the football season. You know, we're coaches, so we're making up games. Had to fight through the storm a couple of weeks ago. Dave, we played 3 football games in a week.
Whoa.
Okay. That's how y'all make up the schedule?
That's how we made up the schedule, man. Now and DC, I know you feel some kind of way about that, and we'll talk about maybe this on another segment, but I do want to get into that. We played 3 games in a week's time on the high school level to make up for the storms. And our high school association okayed these things. So evidently it's been a practice down here in Florida for years, but I'm totally at somewhat of a crossroads with that kind of demeanor and not having a contingency schedule for hurricanes, which are in the state of Florida.
Is Dick Vermeil down there running y'all league?
Man, I mean, goodness gracious, full charging, but we are going to get those games in. I'm telling you. So it's been hectic, but man, we're here and we just keep pushing. So when I see you guys, it's always fun.
Man, thank God you made it through, man. We appreciate you for working hard and still being able to come on and be the great personality you are.
Thanks,
one of the more interesting characters we have, Wally Williams. We're always glad when he is here. Duane Clemons, former NFL defensive lineman with the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Vikings, is here with us. And DC, who's been a great asset to the show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, guys, man. Love doing this show. Love reaching out to all the fans that are listening, man. Thank you guys for the support.
And, the funny thing is, as we're sitting here, we have done now, and I did not expect this is how we would open this show, kind of reminiscing a little bit, but we have done 66 podcasts. This will be 67. This will be 67 of this iteration. And it has been a wild ride, to say the least. Wally and I have been here from the beginning. DC, great to have your presence and your entertainment on this podcast. And we got an entertaining pod, I think, for you guys tonight. Jeff Garcia, Ed Block Courage Award recipient in 2006, I believe, I'm checking my facts so I don't sound like a you-know-what. Tampa Bay in 2006. Is going to join us a little later in the program to talk about Tampa Bay. Boy, rough Monday night for the Buccaneers. We'll talk about that a little bit and that conversation. And longtime quarterback with the Cleveland Browns is going to join us. I know Wally and DC are both excited for a chance to catch up with Jeff here.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait, man. Miss my brother in blood.
Well, I know, see, it's always interesting, okay, to come across people that you've competed with in many different ways. And I know DC has probably seen him up close and personal.
Oh, yeah, God.
Up close and personal. And I gotta Hey, live broadcast. I got a knock on my door, so I got to see who this is. Okay, I'll be right back.
And that's what you gotta love about the podcast world. Real people doing real things, but still trying to be professional as we can.
Yeah,
And
as I'm sitting here trying to clean a stain off my shirt, I just realized I had here.
well,
Go ahead, DC.
well, I'm excited to talk to a fellow West Coast savant. He's from the Bay Area, and being a Cal guy, we got to play against Jeff every year. San Jose State was like always on our schedule, so I've known him his whole career, pretty much from college and throughout the pros. So definitely looking forward to chopping it up with Jeff.
So I'm going to ask this question, and I'll ask it to Wally when he comes back too. But for you guys doing this, is it more interesting to talk to guys that you like, interview and talk to guys that you have played with, or interview the guys that maybe you didn't play with that now you're sort of picking their brain a little bit on? Which is more fascinating for you guys to interview? Wally, as you're back here with us now, is it more fascinating to talk to the guys that played in the era you played with, or guys that played in different eras?
DC, go first. You go first.
Well, I'm excited to talk to guys that played against me in the eras that I played in, because some guys and you kind of got their take, like they might have told you the team's perspective on you, but this to me is going to be interesting to think like, man, I me and Jeff, I was like, I feel like I know this dude like the back of my hand because I played against him for almost 8 or 9 years, playing him in college and in the pros and it's like almost every year I remember playing against Jeff. So I feel like it's almost interesting to see like how much he remembers me, because I know I definitely remember him, and I know there was a couple of situations I can't wait to recall to see what his take on it was like, because man, I can't imagine being that dude and having to play against like 3 or 4 first rounders, knowing you got the softest baby boo-boo in front of you trying to block, and at San Jose State. Like, these are basically, I know JUCO guys that were probably better than the guys that were in front of him at San Jose State.
And I'm sure you took advantage of the opportunities.
Absolutely. That was a game. We were going to pad them stats. You already know that. Listen, I'm trying to be All-American first rounder. I don't care where them sacks come from. Ain't nobody going to go back and be like, oh, he had 10.5 sacks, but he got 3 against San Jose. See, guess what? Three in the D1 sacks. They was in the record books.
And I'm probably more entertained by interviewing guys before me. Like I don't mind saying this. Warren Moon was probably one of the more entertaining interviews I've had, because it's a guy that I saw as a kid. Okay, and you still get to live out some dreams playing this game. And I'm still a fan. As much as I'm a player, I'm probably a bigger fan. I'm a fan of history. So being able to make that interview, and even in my personal life, when you meet guys like Doug Williams or James Shaq Harris, or guys I come across over the years, Lenny Moore, Johnny Unitas when he was live and we moved about, all these guys that you have pictures with and you're shaking hands with. I mean, those are the things that are really solid for me personally. So I really enjoy that part, and that's another reason why I enjoy the media so much and doing what we do right here, because it gives me more of an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just being able to pick the brains of you guys and any of the people that we get to talk to sort of get inside, not just the X's and O's, but sort of the driving factors, the motivation, get into some of the storytelling. I love the storytelling aspect of this. So to me, I'm always fascinated just listening to you guys talk and reminisce and tell these stories to learn from. By the way, did mention earlier, a little banged up coming into this. So if all of a sudden I stop talking a little bit, look, hazard pay is a little high right now for me, just a little bit.
He you don't go in without your helmet on, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you got to grab one, and that's when you go in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Learn my lesson. Yeah, don't. Two kids really going at it. Probably not the best move to try to get in the middle of them. But I was the only one. I had a little bit of some operator error on my part in terms of how I handled it. But jumped in the middle of a fight and I got clocked right on the jaw. So if all of a sudden that like my jaw locks up or I stop talking, it's because my jaw is probably killing me. But I'm fine. I'm good.
Was it a direct hit?
I don't recall, but the kids told me after the fact that yeah, I caught one square.
Yeah, you don't call.
Did not go down. Did not feel it until after got the kids separated, and all of a sudden I'm going, all right, jaw kind of hurts a little bit. Kid must have landed one. But I will say, not that it's big for me to have this, but I got a lot of street cred with all the really bad apples in the school because they all saw me get clocked and I had no reaction to it.
Oh, so your stock is definitely rising.
Yeah, look, they all sat there and went, "Hey, you don't mess with Mr. Steinwedel. He got cold. He got clocked in the middle of the fight, and he didn't react to it. Didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't nothing. So look, there's silver linings in all of this for me, and look, hey, I got street cred with the bad kids because now the bad kids know don't mess with me.
I'm so glad there are people like you on this earth that can deal with kids and not react.
Here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you. Had I known that I got decked in the moment, because like to describe it, like when you go in to break up a fight, there's just you're so much adrenaline is kicking that you're, particularly in my job as security, you're just trying to get the fight to end, get them separated enough to where you can get the two parties out of the area. So that was like chief focus. So I'm sitting there and like no idea what's going on, and all of a sudden get the kids separated, and that's when like you can kind of take stock of yourself and you're like, all right, jaw kind of hurts a little bit. I got some cuts on my hand from kids grabbing and scratching, and I'm like, okay, probably took a couple punches. And it was really bad when I get the kids separated and the kids all go, oh, Mr. Steinwedel, you good? And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I be good? And they're like, you got clocked. There's video circulating. We've been trying to get it taken down, but apparently there is video where you can see.
Is this going to go viral, man? Is this going to go viral? Just
no bad publicity, Dave.
I sure as hell hope not, because there's a little bit of a moment afterwards where I probably do something that I wouldn't say regret, but had I known that I'd gotten punched in the moment, it would not have gone very well for that kid. But thankfully, the kid did apologize, and the parents did apologize on their way out today. So I had a good enough rapport with the one kid that he came up to me and goes, Mr. Steinwedel, are you good? I said, well, don't fight next time. How about that? Novel idea. Let's not fight each other, and then I don't have to step in, and I don't get punched. That sounds like a great idea to me.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Dave. Once I get punched, I'm equal opportunity. I don't care.
Look, had I known, had I known I got hit, I cannot promise I'd have handled it the same way.
Yeah, see, he blesses you, right? That blankness. He gave you a moment of blankness just to like, okay, I don't even know what happened.
Right.
Didn't know till afterwards.
You might be going into pokey tonight. You might be live like Eazy-E. We won, David. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Live from Compton City Jail, Davis Town Week.
Definitely wouldn't have my job. Definitely would not be coaching. But all right, enough of that. Let's get into the NFL, and let's start with this question here. When you look at the NFL landscape, and you look at Monday night's game with the Ravens and the Buccaneers, as former players, let's start with the Ravens. How scary is this offense right now? And DC, I'll start with you because you're a defensive guy. When you look at what the Ravens are doing on offense, as a defensive player right now, what would be your mindset if you said, hey, we've got to play the Ravens this week?
I mean, if you don't have probably a top 5 defense, you got to really get some help from your offense and your special teams. because you can't let them sit on the field. You can't let them hold the ball, and you definitely can't give up those big plays. Especially on the ground. So, that would be my game plan going into a game with them, because their offense is, once you achieve that balance where you can throw it and run it, and you have the ability to use your quarterback as an 11th man, you're playing 10 on 11 basically. And so, their ability to create mismatches is going to just get more and more profound as they kind of figure it out, which they've gotten better and better every week at figuring out how to kind of play into that. So I think as the season goes on and they get better and better, so long as they don't have more injuries, it's going to get harder and harder to find a way to stop that balanced attack. So, you got to have great special teams. You got to have your offense and kind of be firing on all three phases of the game to have a chance.
Interesting. I'm going to be more of a pessimist when it comes to this answer, because I know, the Baltimore faithful want to say, well, yeah, it's the scariest team in the NFL. When Derrick Henry is running like he's running, and that running game allows Lamar Jackson to open up that passing game and to throw the ball downfield to his receivers, it looks great. It looks great. I think the next level is, and this is more, it's not necessarily about Lamar Jackson as it is about the offense itself, maybe the offensive coordinator, and then I would say the last leaf of this is Lamar Jackson. Because, see, what we have to do is still talk about the perimeter game of the Ravens. And at some point, okay, and I'm coming from a Belichick kind of mindset, well, I'm not going to let Derrick Henry beat us today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can we strictly win on the arm of our quarterback, which I think we can, but does that put us almost, and I'm going to say this, in a KC situation where our receiving core is still somewhat anemic? I mean, it's opportunistic, but do we have elite talent that can take us to the next level and get that ring? And I think that question is yet to be answered, because we still got to go through KC at the end of the day. And that's the part that is a little nerve-wracking with me. I think if that happens, we expose our offensive line to a certain extent and put them in a compromising situation. I think they're good pass blockers as much as they're good run blockers. So it's just little things like that I'm somewhat pessimistic about, and not saying that, okay, it's just the best team in the league. Yeah, they're one of them. They're definitely one of them. They're in the running. Okay, but I'm searching for a little bit more, and this is without Derrick Henry.
Well, part of the reason they have Likely, Bates, and Flowers still healthy, and I don't think any team actually has three decent receivers left. Almost everybody's at the bottom of the barrel, so
Well,
they're going to be dangerous.
Is Bateman a guy that I can trust? I know he's a first-round pick, and he's a guy that I don't think he's matured and blossomed to the point that the Ravens wanted it or wants him to be. I think he's a guy that we have. Is he dependable? Well, we don't know that yet. In the years he's been on the Ravens, we can't put him. I can't say he's a dependable receiver. I would say Zay Flowers is more of a dependable receiver than he is, and he's in his second year. And Nelson Aguilar, again, these guys have talent. They were drafted high, but are these guys the guys you're going to put on the field and say, okay, we can attack you strictly from the perimeter? Mark Andrews, okay, we know talent, Pro Bowl. Likely, okay, another guy, okay, where we can put him out there and he's just as talented, seems like, as our tight end group has ever been. You got two nice tight ends there. Is that enough? Is that enough just to win the perimeter game?
I think that's a good question. I think when you look at the Raven offense, the way it is right now, the thing that would scare me the most, not so much, and look, Derrick Henry is phenomenal. What would concern me if I'm having to play against the Ravens right now is the confidence that Lamar Jackson has in the offense. You can just see for the first time, I think, in all his years in the NFL, he's got confidence. He feels comfortable in this offense. You can see it in the way years past they'd get behind by 10 points, and it'd be panic mode. And it'd be Lamar Jackson having to make spectacular things happen. That's not happening this year. They get behind and they don't panic. They stay within themselves. Lamar Jackson stays composed. He makes these big plays. He still makes the magnificent plays. But it isn't that panicked rushed where all of a sudden now they can't do anything with it. They're just, hey, we're good. We can now kind of make some things happen in the passing game. The Raven defense has its question marks, but I think those are just growing pains with all the losses that they've had on defense. But I think the question, and for me, everything with the Ravens was going to go to the offensive line. It's finally started to click a little bit. If there's an injury there, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Do you feel, Wally, that the Ravens are a great team until they play against a team that ain't afraid of them at all?
I think that's another good point as well. You know, if
when they got to go toe to toe and just really Rocky Balboa slug it out for 4 quarters on overtime, who are they?
And that is the question that is there. Do they have enough horses, okay, to do that at the end of the day? Okay, do you, from every position, we know what it is, the quarterback and the running back position. We know what that is. Elite, okay, we know what that is. Let's say we run up against somebody else that has the same elite combination at those positions. Okay, they may have us at the perimeter a little bit. Okay, they may have us at the quarterback position. You know, there are a couple other guys out there that you're going to see down the road, and that's what my concern is. I'm not even concerned with the regular season. I'm more or less looking at the Ravens from a down-the-road perspective because they won the AFC Championship last year, okay? And that's where they are expected to be this year. And since that's the expectation that this team has, well, now you look at the competitors that you will see along the line, and now you match those guys up. And you always got to watch behind those creepy Steelers, okay? And other than that, it's matchups.
Well, so let me
do that.
Let me ask this question about the Steelers, kind of pivoting as we talk about the league here as a whole. Pittsburgh boy, Mike Tomlin. Last week, this time, everybody's ripping Mike Tomlin for the decision to potentially go to Russell Wilson. And for a half, it didn't look great. It did not look great.
They were ripping him the first half of that game.
Yeah. But then
on television.
Yeah, things turn around. So let me ask you this question. How much credit does Mike Tomlin get for making this decision? And do we think, looking at this broadly, this was a one-game thing with Russell Wilson? Or do we think, hey, this is lightning in the bottle that the Steelers have needed?
I'll let you go first, Wally.
Well, look, this is all Tomlin, man. It's been Tomlin the whole time. It's been Tomlin for the last, 5-6 years, and having this team get into the playoffs and not having a losing season. I mean, everybody assumed that Russell Wilson was done. I'll say this from a statistical standpoint. It's not like Russ had a terrible season last year. It was more media frenzy terrible than actually on the field playing terrible. Okay, so I think that needs to be thrown out there as well. Okay, his on the field play was not that bad. Maybe a drop off, but not Aaron Rodgers bad. Okay, he didn't play that bad last year.
Okay, no, definitely not that bad.
Right. So he brings that same formula to Pittsburgh with a coach that can actually coach.
Yeah.
Okay. And has some guys around him that are gritty, grind, and play a certain brand of ball. So that formula fits with the Steelers. And that's why they are sitting atop of the division right now. Tomlin, man, look, as long as Tomlin is there, the Steelers will always have a chance. It's more about him than any player that they bring on that team.
Wally, do I hear you saying you think the Steelers might actually win the division?
Man, and see,
and the Ravens will be the 3 seed or the 2 seed?
As long as Tomlin is there, okay, and that's what, not too many teams I can say that if you're not ready to play, you will be out coached.
Yeah.
There's not too many teams. I mean, pick the team in the NFL or the coaches that, it's a big difference and he's not there.
Well,
And
that's my knock on Lamar. I think he gets outplayed in the terms of intellectually and more emotionally, especially in big games and big moments.
and that's a point that that's a point that could be argued, because it shows up more times than you want to see. And it's not, I don't know. It's not quite Peyton Manning choking.
No.
Okay, it's
It's
not
just
quite that.
those subtle decisions that he does just a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. Just those subtle decisions don't quite get made right.
I tell you, they get home field advantage again. In case he comes to Baltimore, you can start having that Peyton Manning conversation. And he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, for a while, he couldn't get over the top, man. Say he was Brady-ized or whatever you want to call it, or he never beat Florida in college. He was always choked as far as I was concerned, but, it's time. I think it's time that the Ravens, make that move. All the pieces are there. It's a battle of attrition now. If everybody can stay healthy to the end.
Well, Wally, I'm ready to jump on the Pittsburgh bandwagon. I love their defense. I love their special teams. And like you said, with Tomlin being able to kind of bring about the best execution, even when his guys are at a deficit, now you get Russell Wilson giving them a downfield game, and you still have Justin Fields, who you probably have a package already in play for that you can come in and do some RPOs and get some tough yardage in some strange situations, 3rd and 1, short and 4th and 1s. I think they could be a very formidable team because we know he knows how to play with 2 quarterbacks. He's done that, back in the day. So I actually feel like Pittsburgh is that scary dark horse that I'm like, if I'm as a KC fan, I'm looking at them. I'm like, okay, man. If somebody don't do something quick, these dudes could be really in the front of the pack in the next few weeks.
All right, DC, you know this, all right, and you had coaches and stuff like that where y'all had the game plan, week to week. So if you're game planning the Steelers and you coming into the defensive meeting, now how much preparation is going to be for the backup quarterback based on what you just said?
Absolutely. If I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm worried about my quarterback. I'm really worried about my quarterback and my ball carriers. I'm like, how many am I going to have left after this game?
Here's the thing with Pittsburgh, thinking about this as a whole, is credit to Mike Tomlin for having the guts to make the decision, because the reality is it's very easy to sit there and just say, well, it's working, we're going to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that decision comes down to no knock on Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's any knock that comes from this decision, it's at the skill positions for the Steelers of saying there's not enough talent around Justin Fields right now. And Justin Fields is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. But I think Justin Fields is a quarterback that needs to have great talent around him at the skill positions. Russell Wilson, we've seen the track record in his career, can take that average talent and make it great. And you saw that a little bit in that second half Sunday night against the Jets, where didn't play well early, but Russell kind of finds that fountain of youth a little bit, and then all of a sudden everybody else starts making plays. Guys that weren't really making plays, stepping up, start to step up a little bit. So I just think the decision was so gutsy by Mike Tomlin, but I think it was the right decision because no knock on Justin Fields, but Justin Fields is not at that place in his career yet where he can elevate lesser talent and get more out of them. We always go back and we look at the great quarterbacks and we say they can do more with less. Tom Brady, perfect example of that. Peyton Manning, perfect example of that towards the end of his career, where you looked at the talent and you said, it's good, it's decent, but look what they're able to do with it. I just don't think Justin Fields is there yet, and I think it took a lot for Mike Tomlin to do what he did considering where they are, but I think it's worked. And I think it's going to work because the AFC is still really wide open because look, Kansas City's got a lot of questions because of all the injuries at the receiver position. Can you trust that DeAndre Hopkins is going to come in and fix those problems?
I don't think you can, but luckily we got the Raiders. We got Denver. You know, we get the schedule for us gets a little softer. So I mean, if we can get 6-0 against the first half of our schedule, I mean, we should definitely be able to get through at least two or three of these.
And you know, one just to kind of to add to the Russell Wilson thing that, and I kind of agree with this sentiment. And I heard, I heard it today, actually, in I think it was Mike Tomlin's press conference, and I totally agree with the parallel he was making. You know, Justin Fields and the offense like the new modern day young quarterback. Okay, athletic ability, run his leg. He actually was run first and throw second, and that's his strong point. So that's what the new generation does. So Russ is still of the old caveat to throw the ball downfield, okay, and to give him that 50-50 ball and you have the confidence to make those throws. Now, you saw Pickens make some big-time catches down the field, which you've seen him do that in other offenses and other quarterbacks. And when you have a veteran, and I'm taken back by Ryan Fitzpatrick actually, and I'm also taken back by and I'm drawing a blank on my man Red Rifle down here at Carolina,
Andy Dalton.
Yeah. Okay, I'm drawing a court from these guys who were veterans, and at times they came into their spot duties when younger quarterbacks will struggle, and we're seeing that with Andy Dalton right now. I remember Fitzpatrick coming in and sometimes doing that, and he'll come in and throw for 450. Okay, with the same damn offense that this Rook was struggling with or whatever it may be. So, I think in this situation, it is the right move for Russ to make this kind of thing because he is a player who's won a Super Bowl. He's been in big games. He knows how to put that ball out there and put it in strange little places and give your guys an opportunity, give your playmakers an opportunity. Justin Fields, he's not going to take those kind of risks. He's not going to make those kind of calls. He's not going to make the offensive changes to put the team in those kind of situations. So just being a veteran and coming in and having some balls at times, okay, and just slinging it around and not think so much. Just play the game like you've been doing it all the time. I think that's very refreshing, very refreshing on a monetary level with the way the Steelers played. And I think that showed more than anything else. The offense loosened up in the second half. Okay, downfield, okay, timely runs, back downfield. Okay. When an offense is in that mode and in that space to where you're calling the plays and have a defense off balance, and I don't think they were ready for what Russ was offering in that second half, man. I think they thought he was going to struggle, and no, that ball can't find out downfield and really open that offense up.
I believe in Tomlin, but I don't think he's done with Justin. I think there's going to be some, I think he's going to find a way to use both of these guys to his advantage. He's only got 1 year with both of them, and I feel like, okay, now I got an idea of what Russell does in offense. But I think this was the week that he tested it out. It worked out good. But I still feel like there's going to be some kind of duality or reality where they're going to be formidable because they're going to figure out how to use both of them and get something great with both, whether with his legs and with Russell's arms and with Russell's intelligence and ability to make good decisions at the line. So, I mean, I've seen him do this before, so I just can't wait to watch him unfold it at some point during the season.
Well, and here's the other thing too. When they brought both quarterbacks in, Russell Wilson was for the present.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that changed the thought process for the Steelers when he went down with the injury. I think the Steelers, or at least Mike Tomlin, was always going to be, look, it's going to be Russell because right now he's the best chance to win in the present. I think what did happen for Justin Fields is I think you've positioned yourself, if you're Justin Fields, to be the guy long term in Pittsburgh. I think that's the best thing that came out of all of this for Justin Fields right now is, okay, yeah, did I lose a starting job? Yes. But look, Russ is 36, I think. Like, Pittsburgh's going to want, in a division that has Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, a guy that's going to be there for the next 8 to 10 years. So that's to me where, if you're Justin Fields, you walk away from this going, I might have secured myself the next job for me in the NFL as the guy in Pittsburgh. It may just not be this year because right now Russell Wilson is your best option to win. All right. We do need to get ready to step aside here because we are anxiously awaiting Jeff Garcia, 2006 Ed Block Courage Award recipient with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we're going to step aside real fast. When we come back, you will get to hear that conversation with Jeff Garcia. Welcome back to the Ed Block Courage Cast. And hey, look, we promised that he was going to be joining us. The guys are really excited about this. Dave Steinwedel, Duane Clemons, Wally Williams, and pleased to be joined. He's an Ed Block Courage Award recipient in 2006 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a longtime NFL quarterback. That would be Jeff Garcia, kind enough to join us and make his Courage Cast debut. Jeff, great to see you. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Great to connect with you guys and bring back some good memories of the Ed Block Courage Award. Much appreciated to be a recipient of that award back in 2007, actually. My first year with Tampa. And to join an elite group of men out there who, play with courage, come back from injury, all the things that exemplify what playing the game of football is all about.
Well, Jeff, I want to kind of get into your humble beginnings because, I have a strong, passion toward guys who actually take a longer road, okay, and are not directly, wanted by the NFL. So talk about your road and how you rose to be the absolute killer, because I played on them same teams where you were cutting us apart. Okay. All right. So, hey, tell us how it became the Jeff Garcia show and started all that stuff in the NFL.
Coming out of high school. I mean, we go back to high school. I was not recruited coming out of high school. I go play at the local junior college for my dad, who happened to be the head football coach there. I play 1 year there under my dad. I get some recognition from some D1 schools, Utah, Wyoming, and then San Jose State, which was 30 miles away from where I grew up. So I commit to San Jose State. I redshirt a year. I played 3 years at San Jose State under three different head coaches. So every year, new offensive system. But during those 3 years, I set a record for quarterback total yardage for the school. I get invited to the East-West Shrine Game. I become MVP of the Shrine Game. I think I'm doing enough to get attention from the NFL, but it's still coming my way, The talk on me, size, I wasn't big enough. I didn't have the strong enough cannon for an arm. I just wasn't the prototype that they were looking for at the time. Everybody wanted that Troy Aikman. They wanted that 6'4", 6'5", 230 pocket passer, guy who can, take a hit in the pocket, but wasn't the most mobile of guys. And I think I was ahead of my time in a lot of ways. I mean, there were some mobile guys that preceded me, like, Randall Cunningham, one of the great to play. Steve Young, obviously, was one of those mobile guys who can make things happen with his feet. Then, obviously, Donovan McNabb and some of the guys that started to come in during the time that I was playing started to change the mold of the look of the quarterback position.
NFL wasn't ready for that yet, man. They wasn't all in on that kind of quarterback yet.
Right. And so my only opportunity at the time was to go to Canada. I had Calgary Stampeders that were interested in me, and not as a starter and not even as the backup. Doug Flutie was our starter. We had another guy who had been in the league for 6 years, who was the backup, and Steve Taylor out of Nebraska. And I was competing to be the third string quarterback on the team back in 1994. And fortunately, I beat out another rookie in a one preseason game. I had one quarter to play in that one preseason game. And it was in that quarter that separated me from the other rookie. And I earned my spot on the team. I watched that entire first year. The second year, I became the backup to Doug. Doug goes down in the 8th, 9th game of the season. Midway through the season, I take over. We go 8-1 with me as a starter. My first start at home, I throw for 500 plus yards and 6 touchdowns. We're all going, who's this redheaded Mexican stepping onto the field? We don't know. You know, and, you know, if you look at my career, it really comes down to being opportunistic, man. Hey, as you know, opportunities are few and far between. And when they do present themselves, if you're not ready to take advantage of it, it's going to pass you by. The next guy is going to get the shot. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like I just kept grinding. I kept battling. I loved when people told me I couldn't do certain things. And it really was my relationship with Bill Walsh, who saw me play against him when he was coaching at Stanford and I was at San Jose State. And I lit him up one Saturday afternoon. Even though we lost that game, he told the media afterwards, he's like, that kid reminded me of Joe Montana. He did some Joe Montana-like things on the field today. So I went back to Bill and I'm like, hey, Bill, you got a lineage, a tree line of coaches coaching throughout the NFL. You believe in me. Would one of your guys take your word and maybe give me that opportunity? And eventually it came down to Bill getting back involved in the NFL, going back to the 49ers. I went through 5 years in Canada. I became, you know, a Grey Cup champion, MVP candidate, MVP of the Grey Cup game, all those things. And it was Bill who gave me my shot. I had some other workouts, the Rams, Miami, Jacksonville, and there was one other workout. Oh, the Oakland Raiders at the time, John Gruden. And, you know, it came down to Miami and Frisco offering me basically a base salary contract. And I just felt like I was a better fit in Frisco with Steve Young being the QB as opposed to Miami with Dan Marino being the QB. I just fit more like Steve. And plus, I grew up in the Bay, man. The Niners were my team. So it was like a dream come true for me to finally get that shot. And I thought, hey, well, this will be similar to what I went through in Canada, watching Doug Flutie, who's a Hall of Famer up there. Right. He ran all over the field. I mean, the guy was electric up there in the Canadian Football League. And I'm like, well, I'll get to learn from Steve for a couple years and, hey, really be mentored by him, and then I'll get my shot. Well, we all know what happened to him in the 3rd or 4th game of the year. And now, next thing you know, I'm out there with bullets flying, you know, and learning under fire. And, you know, that first year was a little bit tough, but I adapted. I kept battling. I kept my head up and eventually turned it around.
Jeff, you are one of my, I feel almost like we grew up together. And I know you were actually a couple of years ahead of me, but I was at Cal. And so we played you every single year.
Oh, and yeah. I remember playing against you there, man. You and Cheaty.
Yeah,
right?
me and Cheaty, man. You were such a freaking warrior, man. You used to take hit after hit. I mean, sometimes I remember one game, I swear we must have hit you like, I forgot, it was a crazy number, like 25 times, and you kept getting up, and we beat you guys like, and I'm not trying to kick dirt on the fact we beat you guys by a lot, but you just kept getting up, and I was like, why is this guy still in the game? I wish this guy was our quarterback.
You know what, Duane? It's funny because your linebacker, what was his name? Barsala or something like that?
Yeah, Mick Barsala and
Mick Barsala.
Jared Willard.
I'm rolling out to the sideline and I'm attacking the line of scrimmage and he's headhunting me. And I did one of those patented, you know, probably jumped a little bit, throw it at the last second. And he caught me right under my chin. And that thing busted open. And there's pictures. There's a little player's card from me at San Jose State. my jersey's all bloodied up because Cal, man, he put this helmet right in my chin, and hey, but I couldn't lay down. I couldn't give up. I had to bounce right back up and keep coming after you guys, even though you were destroying me on that day.
That's why I say you are the toughest quarterback I have ever played against, ever. High school, college, pros. Because I remember you were a bloody mess, and I was like, why would they do this to this man? He's like, man, they're losing 45. We were out there trying to get stats at that point. I was like, man, everybody's trying to get 2 or 3 extra sacks for, before we get into USC and UCLA. But I was like, man, I had so much respect for you. The fact that you were just a warrior out there taking these hits, still trying to make plays, extending plays, running around with your legs. I was like, what is this guy made of? I thought I'm like, they gotta be, like medically, he cannot be okay. He is profusely bleeding. It looked like you were bleeding from your eyes and your chin.
No, you're right, man. I lost. And you know what? They interviewed my mom after that game. She literally had tears in her eyes. And it's like, how do you watch your son go through a beatdown like that? Because you're right. It was literally a beatdown. We were overmatched. We could not compete with you guys physically. But, hey, there was no quit in my game, man. All grit, no quit.
So I want to ask you.
I remember that vividly. I do.
So I want to ask you, Jeff. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I want to ask you about that mindset, because it's part of the reason that you became an Ed Block Courage Award recipient in your first year in Tampa. Where did that mindset come from for you of this just, hey, I got to get right back up and get right back into it?
Yeah, I think it was just instilled at a young age. My dad, total overachiever, man, comes from a Mexican immigrant background, grew up working in the fields. His love for sports is what really carried him through school. Became a football coach at a young age at the junior college level. He was coaching in his mid-20s, became the head coach in his late 20s. I think back, I'm like, damn, Dad, how are you? Like, you were like those players you were coaching were much younger than you, and you were taking the bull by the horns, man. You were inspiring, you were motivating. Hey, you were out there recruiting, you were bringing players from all over the country. You're finding them apartments, you're finding them food, you're hustling. My dad was just a hustler, man, the ultimate hustler, and he just would not take no for an answer, man. If he believed in something, if he believed in someone, he was going to do his best to help them prevail, to help them succeed. And I tell you what, they won the national championship in 1973. I was the JUCO national championship for small colleges. I was 3 years old. It was only his second year as the head coach there at the college. And he still, to this day, we celebrated 50-year reunion of that team last summer. And 28 of the 36 guys that played on that team came back to the reunion. He gets calls once a week from players that played for him. Hey, coach, man, how you doing? Hey, coach, if it weren't for you, man, you changed my life, coach. And that's what I grew up with. I grew up with a father who was like a game changer. He was a life changer. He believed in these kids. He loved them. And that just encouragement growing up around that sort of like inspiration and motivation, it caught fire within myself. I knew I wasn't the most athletic guy, but mentally I understood the game at a young age because I would sit there and watch film with my dad, and he would talk to me about, hey, cover 3, here's cover 4, here's cover 2, all the different coverages. And I would just watch it on the old projector, right? The old projectors on the wall at the house. I mean, it was better than watching 2 channels on TV because, hey, we didn't have much out there in the countryside, and we didn't have video games. We didn't have all that stuff distracting us. So that was enjoyable for me. I would go be dropped off at the football field. And then, there's some perseverance in my life. There's some tragedy that we had to, unfortunately, live through. I lost a brother at a young age. I was 7, he was 6. I lost a sister a year after that. She was 5, I was 8. Both tragic, unforeseeable type accidents that, took the lives of 2 young people in our family. And I saw the heartache, the hurt that it caused my mom, how she could carry on still as a parent to myself and my two younger sisters. And then my dad, he just dove into work. He was a type A personality. Work ethic is what he was all about. But it was all about sports, and that's what I grew up around. And really, I think that was a saving grace for me and for my family. It gave my mom something to like be distracted by. Hey, she had to take me to practices. She had to go to my games on the weekends, whether it was football, baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever it was that I was playing. She was there to support me and root me on, man. And it really got her through some difficult times. And I just kept like chipping away. You know, my kids talk about today at 14 and 15-year-old, they used to talk when they were younger. Hey, Dad, what pro team do you think I'm going to play for? I'm like, man, just try to be the best you can be right now. You don't know what's going to happen. But if you're not taking advantage of right now and living in the moment, you aren't going to get anywhere, you know? And there's an unrealistic view that they have because of social media, because of what they have access to on TV, because what they're exposed to out in the environment where we live, where there's, you know, some professional athletes that live around us. They just think it's normal, and it's not. You know, we had to grind, we had to battle, we had to overcome adversity. We had to hear the no's nonstop, but not take no for an answer, so to speak. And I used to coach quarterbacks around here, and I used to tell them, hey, don't be discouraged by failure. Be encouraged by what you're going through, the moment to be able to grow, to mature, to experience. Hey, battle through it, man. Nobody can tell you what you can't do. It's all within yourself, but your dreams, your goals have to have work ethic and dedication behind it in order to achieve it.
You know, two-part question. You know, talk about your coaching, because you know, me and Dave here coach high school football and train guys and all those things like that. And it's totally different kind of deal with these kids out here. So that's the first part of it. And then the second question is, you know, we all played on different teams. You know, I played my first year with the Browns, and I was an undrafted free agent. So that's why I love hearing that background story right there. Then I moved on to Baltimore, to that debacle, moving to Baltimore, then finished my career with the Saints. Every team had a different kind of, every place had a different feel. Okay, Baltimore, Cleveland was like the first ever. Like, bam, I'm in the NFL. Bam, I'm here. Okay, New Orleans was my season year where I was a vet and I was expected to make things happen. So I'm asking you, you know, I heard Frisco was your favorite. That's the Bay. You're a Bay guy. Detroit, Cleveland, but Tampa, which one was the one where you felt like, okay, bam, I got this stuff locked. I have arrived and I'm ready to catapult and take whatever team wherever they need to go?
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, I had moments of that in San Francisco, even though we were rebuilding at the time, and people, you know, look at those Niner teams, and I was right at the tail end of the greatness of the 80s and 90s. All of a sudden that team got old. It had to be turned over. It had to bring some youth back in, make some changes. And we got things turned around quickly. Our first 2 years there, we struggled a little bit, my first 2 years. But then, hey, the third year, we were 12-4, playing in the NFC wildcard game out in Green Bay. Year 4, we win the NFC West, and we got a home game against the New York Giants. We end up losing to Tampa the next week, who ends up winning the Super Bowl. You know, we got it turned around, but then they fire Coach Mariucci, you know, and then they bring in a new coach, and the egos, the politics, you start to see that take place in the game. And it's unfortunate because all we want to do as players is win. We want to win. Right. And coaches generally want the same. They want to win as well. And then all of a sudden you get a GM who's not on the same page with the head coach and the owner and those sort of things. And then you have division amongst people. And that's what I saw going to Cleveland, going to Detroit, as you experienced. The lack of consistency, the lack of solidarity, the lack of just being together for year in and year out. You can't afford to start over every 2-3 years at this level. There's no way you're going to compete with the best if you're constantly starting over. A new change of identity, new change of the type of player we're looking for. Man, it doesn't work. And you see them continue to have those struggles. Finally, Detroit has found their way with an ex-NFL stud of a player or solid, gritty, mean mofo out there in Campbell. And
that's what we need, huh? We need more of those, huh?
Absolutely. And I think like that's where a lot of these coaches, man, they don't want to see the ex-player come and feel like they're stepping on their toes. I coached 1 year in St. Louis with the Rams. The last year they were in St. Louis. And I saw, with me being an assistant wide receiver coach, but yet the most accomplished quarterback in the building, yet I wasn't allowed to talk to the quarterbacks. One time I tried to coach up Case Keenum in a drill. I just tried to give him advice, and I got yelled at by the offensive coordinator who had never played the quarterback position in his life, let alone I could run the drill better than the quarterbacks we had on the team at the time. And yet I got chastised for trying to help a player out and share information that I had accomplished and experienced and been there, done that for 11 years of my career in the NFL, 16 years total in professional football. My experience in Philly was a great one in the sense of how it transpired. You know, I ended up signing with Philadelphia after my year in Detroit. So Cleveland and Detroit, both coaches don't finish out the season. The coach in Cleveland resigned. He was about to get fired, but Butch Davis resigned with 4 games left. They fired Steve Mariucci. The only reason why I went to Detroit was to reconnect with my 49er past coaches, which that Detroit staff was full of 49er coaches. So it was comfortable for me. And of all the teams that were recruiting me at the time, Detroit was going to give me a chance to compete with the starting quarterback. Unfortunately, I broke my fibula in the last preseason game in Buffalo. So I missed the first 8 weeks. The year doesn't start off the way the coaching staff or I was hoping it would go. And Joey Harrington is running our team, and nothing against Joey, but I was a better quarterback, a better leader, better all the things. And I ran the West Coast offense. I knew how to operate it. But again, you had a GM that didn't see eye to eye with the head coach. And so he gets fired. Granted, now moving forward, I chose to go to Philadelphia knowing that I would not start, but I wanted to be with a quality organization, an organization that could compete with anybody in the National Football League, that had stability, that had been to Super Bowl previously a couple years prior. They'd been to NFC Championship games 4 consecutive years, I think it was at one time. So I went there knowing that my chance to be on the field was minimal because they had Donovan, who was a proven starter, but I knew I was going to be with a quality team. And that was a difference maker, because when I did step onto the field and I was hungry and I was ready to do it, we just took off. You know, I had the guys around me. I had the coaching staff supporting me, and it created an excitement and an energy in that city where they thought the season was over. We were 5-5 when I took over as the starting quarterback. And we end up going 10-6, end up winning the NFC East division, beating the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas Day, beating the New York Giants in New York on Sunday Night Football, beating the Redskins out there in Washington, 3 games against the NFC East, all on the road consecutively, and we stomped them. And we came back home as the NFC East division champs. And, you know, even though it was 1 year in Philly, they're always going to love Jeff Garcia because I went on a good run and I ended on a good note. And I gave them Merry Christmas, Philadelphia. And
you can always go back to
them.
Philly. You can always go back to Philly.
I can always go back to Philly, man. Tampa was good. Believe me. Hey, I was 37-38. I felt like I was still playing good football. Right. Went to Tampa. Hey, Gruden challenged me like no other coach in the National Football League as far as mentally being prepared, understanding the game, everything that he would throw at us in practice. He'd bring out a blitz from 4 years ago that the team that we were going to play ran. But hey, you got to be prepared for this. You may see it. You never know. So he prepared us mentally really well. I mean, we didn't open up the offense all that much because we relied on a great defense, but they were good. A good 2 years. We won the NFC South while I was there. I went to a Pro Bowl while I was there. I thought I still had another 4 or 5 years of football left in me. But then again, changes happen. I had to go find a new home after the contract ended. I go to Oakland. Now I'm again in the politic type world. I'm backing up Jamarcus Russell. It's his 3rd year in the National Football League. The guy didn't want to be a starter. He didn't want to be a player. He just wanted the money. He didn't want to work for it, and at the end of the day, it's unfortunate because he had a great opportunity, but it turned out to be the last year of his career. Right. And I chose at 39 years old. I had just had our 2nd baby. We had moved to San Diego. We had 2 young kids at home. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this crap anymore. Maybe it's time for me to hang it up. And I asked to be released at the end of training camp. And I kind of kicked myself at times because I could have still been there. I probably would have stepped on the field in week 1 because he got injured. But the culture in Oakland, if any of you have heard about it at the time, before any new facilities or anything like that, it was not a good, healthy environment. And I just, at that point, 39 years old, I'm like, why am I dealing with this crap anymore? So I chose to step out at that time. And, I got 1 more year with Houston a couple years later at 41, but it was an emergency quarterback situation. But you know what? Hey, I maximized my career, man. I had a hell of a run. I had some great stops, even the ones that weren't so great, Cleveland, Detroit. I met some great people. I had a lot of great experiences, and I'm blessed to be able to sit here and talk to you about it now.
All right, Wally, DC, one final question each from you because we got to let Jeff go here.
I'm sorry I talk so much, man, but practice. Pick his ass up in 15 minutes. We could do this again, though. We could do this again.
Of course.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Wally.
Oh, I go first? Okay. So like I said, man, with all the experiences, and you cherish every one, talk about Ed Block, okay, and the journey that you had to go through with your injury situation, because we all have been through that process. I tore my Achilles, had to fight back through that, and didn't know what was going to happen in regards to coming out of that and being the kind of player that I was before that type of injury. So talk about your situation, how you came out of that.
Yeah, coming out of Philadelphia to Tampa, shoot, man, I needed to have this on display a little bit.
There you go, right there, man.
Look at that.
I was sitting on the different part of the room. But hey, I think people just saw what I had been through the previous 3 years. I had a couple injuries in Cleveland that I had to battle through, ended up missing a couple games. Then I break my fibula in Detroit and had to try to bounce back from that, rushed back from it, probably stepped on the field too soon, was able to at least go into Cleveland and beat my old Browns and put it in their face. But that said, I was still hobbling. And so when I went to Philadelphia and I was backing up Donovan, for the first 10 games of the season, man, that was a struggle. Especially, you guys know, when you're on the field and you're a contributor, that's what it's all about. And as a quarterback, hey, I can't run down on kickoffs. I can't be on punt return unless I'm that guy from New Orleans, and I'm not that guy, So I was limited, man. I was limited to running scout team and practice and then sitting on the sidelines all game long. And hey, nothing against Donovan. He's a great quarterback, a class act, and I didn't wish anything bad for him to happen in that season. But as we know, things do happen and injuries do happen. And that was my time to shine. That was my opportunity to step on the field and take advantage of it. And, that led to getting a contract offer, a 2-year deal from Tampa, and just going out there to then turning that team around. I believe they were like 4-12 before the year before I got there. And we go in there and I come in there and help to rally the offense and bring some consistency to the offense and bring them to an NFC South division title and a playoff game. And so, I think just my teammates and everybody across the the country at that time just saw what I had battled through the previous 3 years, the uncertainty of where I was going to be, the injury issues, but yet never allowing that to dictate my work ethic, my drive, my commitment to the team, my leadership. And because of all those things, I really believe that's why I was voted in, man, because I think people see just the grind, the mentality in me. I'm all about the team. I never was about the stats. Hey, I never cared about how many touchdowns or yards I threw for. The only stat that mattered to me was a win. And if we won, then I'm probably doing something right, And so that was the biggest deal to me, and to be recognized and to be able to attend the Ed Block Courage Awards in Baltimore. I mean, that's in so many ways a dream come true, because you're being recognized by your peers. You're being recognized by the media, by the people around the NFL who really watch you and see what you've gone through and see what you're all about. And to represent the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that gave me tremendous pride and an honor to do so.
So, Jeff, my question is a little bit more personal. You got to be a career Californian. And that's something that I always dreamed about, being able to play high school, college, and pro, all in the state of California. You got to do that. So let me live vicariously through you for a second. And what's it like to be able to know you've played at every level, at home, in the great state, and was able to kind of solidify that with your career as a pro?
I'm so much about family, and the opportunity to go up the road. We could never foresee that I would go through 3 head coaches in 3 years at San Jose State. But at the time, they were playing good football. They were a competitive college football team. They were 30 miles from home. And I knew that going there, I was still going to have my family be able to come to every game. I mean, hell, they held the big old tailgates in the parking lot, the burritos, all the things were going, the carne asada, you name it, right?
Oh, man.
But
hungry. Come on.
That's what it was all about, man, to be able to come off the field and see 30 of your family members and friends there to support you, to encourage you, whether it was good or bad, they were there for you. And then, to go to Canada, but then to come back and play for the 49ers, to be back in the Bay Area. It was a reunion all over again, and to be able to have that sort of support, to know that I had people that had my back, no matter what the media might say. Hey, they were on me especially hard that first year when things had changed and everybody's looking at the 49ers like, well, the only difference is that Steve Young's not the quarterback. That's why they're losing. Well, no, there were more problems than that. But yeah, I can see why people would think that. People that don't know the game intimately, they're going to think that, hey, your best player, one of your best players, your star players, he's no longer on the field. That's why the team has changed. Well, I went through those growing pains, but having the family and the support there to help me through it was especially important for me, because there were times when, hey, doubt started to creep in. Hey, maybe I don't belong in the NFL. Maybe the CFL was the right fit for me, but I battled through it. I got through it. Hey, and I found the silver lining through just staying positive, staying in the moment, staying with the grind. Hey, not drinking the poison, right? And being able to have my family there was awesome, man. I remember my first drive up, my first start at Candlestick was against the Tennessee Titans. They had a hell of a team that year. That's the year they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Rams, but they were coming into town. It was my first start at home. And man, the chills, the tingling, just the hair on the back of my neck, standing up as I was rolling into Candlestick and just seeing the stadium from a distance was electric, and just so awesome for me that all of a sudden my dreams were coming true. My dream as a young kid to run out onto that field, following the greats of Montana and Young and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott and all those greats that I watched in the 80s and 90s. Now I'm going to be that guy. And that was awesome. It was truly awesome, man. Wish you could have experienced that, Duane. Sorry, man.
It's okay. Thank you for sharing that with me, man. I can smell the carne asada now.
Got it.
All right. Well, Jeff, we appreciate the time you gave us. We would love to have you come back on and honestly host the podcast with us one week.
Please.
Absolutely. That would be great, man. Absolutely. I'm definitely open to that, and we love to, hear more about you guys and where life is taking you today. We all have our transition, and some easier than others, right? And I think the young players today, they're doing a lot better job of preparing those young guys for transition, building their brands, all the things. We didn't have access to that 10, 12, 15 years ago. And so a lot of players and players before us, are in those positions now where they're struggling, and they're trying to find that passion. They're trying to find that path, right? That purpose in life. And I would love to hear more about you guys and what you've been through and where you're at today, and how you're answering that call to keep thriving and grinding and sharing that excitement and passion with others, man.
I think we just found our next host for next week.
There we go. There we go. I love it. I love it. That's it right there.
Jeff, Dave can't make it next week, man. I don't know if you have time, but man, we'd love to have you host with us next week if you have time.
Yeah, you tell me when and where, and we'll make it happen.
Am I being replaced right here on the air? That's what I'm hearing.
It's just a ball players night out, baby. The ball players night out. It may have to kick Dave to the curve here.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
We need the real blood, sweat, and tears to be talking here. Eh? You can't be on the sideline thinking you know what we went through, man. You haven't been there.
I completely bow down to you guys. All right, Jeff, thank you for taking some time with us. We're going to wrap this up. For DC, for Wally Williams, I'm Dave Steinwedel. This has been the Ed Block Courage Cast.